Let's talk about end user operationally ready. I've had several jobs and they get handed over and the building operators aren't sometimes really ready for them. So what's your experience of handing buildings over, like new buildings to new building operators? How does that work for you?
Okay, so this is a problem. It's been a problem for a long time, and I'll tell you why it's a problem, because I don't like that word handover. Uh, I believe that building operators are usually hired by the owner, or they could be like a third party, but they take massive amount of accountability for that, right? So they are called stakeholders, in my
Yeah.
opinion. Stakeholders should be involved from the start to the middle to the finish. Okay. On the best projects that I'm working on, I demand to basically have those people in our meetings. I want their input from day one all the way till day plus 365, where when we're actually out there, I'm working on a project right now where I have the building operator, good guy, right? He's actually sitting there with us as we're going through all the controls crap that we're going through. And he's learning, right? And when you basically have someone like that, it's not a here, it's more like it's a handshake. And anybody knows in the controls for world is a turnover is like you just give it over, but a handshake is when basically you link,
Yeah.
right? And basically you're finding that connecting point for each other. So then you all know what's going on and you're all in the boat together instead of saying, hey, I just built the boat. Here's your keys, Johnny. How do I run it? You got 3 motors in the back and you got a rudder. Knock yourself out, Joe. No, it should be that we are part of a team, that we are learning together, that they're part of the graphics. They're part of everything. You're part of all the coordination for all the tagging, all the naming, all the what if it goes down. The big question is like, okay, so do we have a high static, low static reset? Do you want to run up on the roof? No. Do you want a manual reset? I don't know. Do you want a BIS reset? Maybe. You know what I mean? These are the kind of things where you work through it with everybody. And it's like, hey, when we do the graphics, let's take another 2 months to have a few meetings to make it right. So when they go, oh, so that's where I click it. I do not like turnover meetings with controls when they're like, oh, I got my agenda. I got this, right? I don't want to see some generic JCI or Siemens or Honeywell's like 8,000 page document and how to basically run their program. That's not how I roll. I basically want to do snapshots and snips of every piece of this project, of this piece, on how they're going to be able to work. Because you want to know what's going to happen at the end of the day? Who's going to get a call back in a month, 6 months? This guy, right? So most of the time, commissioning people don't realize that we actually get VPN access. We actually I still get alarms for years for projects that you're seriously monitoring my alarms. I'm a loser. I just work. So I'll get on there at night sometimes. I'm like, man, why do you have a high static? How's that happen? They're like, I'm calling my friends in Hawaii. They're like, you're seriously looking at my screen. I'm like, I'm not being paid for it, right? But I care. There's some of us that really actually do care. And operators, they're my best friends, right? So if you do not include them, you will have a world of poo-poo, right? And if you do include them, there might be some poo-poo too. But at the same time, it's just like being able to have that and have those connections and have them right there, man, it makes your world and your life so much better that when you walked away from a project, you turned it over to someone who cares just as much as you. Because I'm telling you something right now, whenever someone calls me up, like an owner, I'm like, how's the project doing? Is it going good? Chiller's working? Everything. When they say project's working great, I'm like, yes. You know what I mean? So
yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I've had a couple of experiences where the FM team, this is like an institutional client, like at a university, and they brought the FM team into the design and delivery process. That was great. So there was one point where I was in a meeting where we were talking about commissioning specs and handover, and the FM person was there, and we had the interaction with them. So I got their expectations and the problems they had, and we managed to work that in. It worked great.
Oh yeah.
And I came out of the meeting thinking, why doesn't that happen more often?
Because people like you and me basically don't think I think about day one, man. I get on a project, I'm like, Who are the people who are going to run this? You, best friends. Let's go get a beer. Best friends. Let's work on this. We have to engage them. They have to engage them. I mean, this is going to sound weird. It's like how to make friends 101. I mean, literally, you can't emphasize how much it's important to basically have all your ducks in a row with documentation, but it's also really important to basically how do we as a team make everybody feel comfortable so when you walk away, like you're still part of it. And the best part is I've switched firms in the last few years, right? I still get calls from those folks that are working with the previous firms, and I'm like, no problem. You know what I mean? Or I'll let the firm, the other one know, but I'm like, don't walk away from a client who, remember, I don't like that word client. It just sounds so non-personal. You know what I mean? Like clients are friends. You know what I mean?
You're talking about professional courtesy here, right? And professionalism.
Complete professional courtesy, but it's also, think about it. Why do we hire at your house? Why, like when someone fixes your air conditioning or your roof or something like that, why is there called repeat hiring? Because you're like, hey, I might have an issue. You're like, no problem. I'll come by and check it out. You're like, I'm not saying like everything's free, but back in the old days, you know what I mean? Where clients and friendships and helping were actually real. Like hey, everybody watch this. It's real in my book. Anybody that knows me, I'm real.
On speculative builds, you can't do that. But where there's an institutional client and they've got an interest in how I'm running that building, I really like bringing them in. But
you just said on spec builds, right? Once again, spec builds low bid, but at the same time, if you get to know the people who are running the buildings on spec builds, you're still creating the relationship.
Yeah, you are, but sometimes they don't know who that building is going to, right? They can stand empty.
I know.
The other thing I like to do, even if the FM team, say you're on a job and you're right near the last couple of months and then they come on at that point, I invite them to the FPT and IST testing so they can see the systems being tested and handed over. The difference in the confidence for them to take that building, just seeing those tests being done, is amazing. Because they come in confident that things are working. They've seen the demonstration. They've had that learning experience. It's high value stuff. I can't recommend that enough. If you have the chance, invite the FM team to see the FPT and the IST testing.
Well, they're just let you know they're supposed to be, right? They're supposed to. When you send over to the GC or the CM, their job is to basically share it with the other team members. But as a commissioning, you don't really have a hierarchy. Just let everybody know who's watching this. You can basically send it to whoever the hell you want to, right? And you say, look at it, see what you think. That's how it should be. But remember, though, it's just like too many cooks in the kitchen is going to lead to basically not a good taste in spaghetti.
But I always feel sorry for the FM people because whatever we give them, they have to take, right? There's no choice. They're taking it over. So getting them involved and getting them comfortable, there's no downside to that if they're there. Right?
Well, interesting enough, like it all depends on the size and all depends on the team. For the most part, though, every time we have a project, we're always basically going to put review of. So we'll send it over and say, here's your draft, right? You can review it. And so remember, though, when you review it, mark the crap out of it, right? If you want to see it, then we'll basically update it. But if I get it back and like a month later, no reviews, no nothing, do not call me 8 months later and say, I want to basically have all this reviewed now. Like, you know what I mean? It's just like you had your month or 2 or 3 and you had all those people that were on the emails and you didn't come back and say something. It's just like, you got to make it so important that, I love this one where, hurry up and wait kind of thing, where I love it when you have some clients, that you're dealing with, like, everything's a heart attack, okay? And then you'll go, and they'll sit on it for 3 months. And then all of a sudden, like when you ask them something, it's just like, yeah, we'll get to it. I'm like,
that's exactly right. That's so true.
Give everybody the same consideration and just treat them with respect and their time, because time and priority are so huge these days.
This all comes down to professionalism ultimately, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.